Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah ma ba'd. What is the ruling on a person sleeping next to another person on the same bed who is not their spouse? Now, obviously, husband and wife can sleep in the same bed because the Messenger of Allah ﷺ didn't have an awra between him and his wives. They used to sleep in the same bed, they used to sleep in the same blanket. They even used to make ghusl with one another at the same time. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ didn't have an awra with his partner. There is no awra between, there is nothing secret between husband and wife. But here we are talking about people who are not married. Now from this hukm and the ahkam connected to it and the rulings connected to what we're going to say here, we can see that Islam came to preserve safeguarding more than 1400 years ago. Safeguarding issues which are affecting us in society today, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ addressed more than 1400 years ago, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So he says in this hadith, which is in Abu Dawood, which is hadith is sahih, مُرُوا أَوْلَادُكُمْ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَهُمْ أَبْنَاءُ سَبْعِ سِنِينَ. Teach your children how to pray at the age of 7 years old. وَاضْرِبُوهُمْ عَلَيْهَا وَهُمْ أَبْنَاءُ عَشَرٍ. And once they understand how to pray, then make sure that they're praying fully by the age of 10. وَفَرِّقُوا بَيْنَهُمْ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ. And here's the point: separate them at the age of 10 in their beds. Now, the ulama have mentioned, and you will find this from across the four madhabs, that a person, when they come to the age of 10, should not be sleeping in the same bed as another person. Now, we have to understand the context of this. In Al-Madinah, at the time of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, the clothing that they possessed was enough just to cover their awrah. Sometimes people used to have two garments, and they used to wear both of the garments. And sometimes people used to have a little bit more. But for the most part, many of the companions, they only had what was sufficient to cover their awrah. And then when they used to sleep in houses which were very small. So they'd have perhaps two rooms, one room as a living room and another room as a bedroom, and everyone used to sleep in the same room. So the children would be in one room, one area, and the parents might be in another area. This is predominantly what used to happen in Al-Madinah. Obviously, some people were more affluent than others. So the children used to sleep in one bed, and their clothing is limited. They've probably only got one blanket covering all of them. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ is saying, now at the age of 10, when they're going through biological changes themselves, when they're coming to an understanding of their own body and the body of the opposite gender, separate them at the age of 10. Now, I don't want to make this complicated and make it lengthy, but you will find from the books of the four madhabs giving a reason, which is that it doesn't create fitna. So anyone who reaches the age of 10 and beyond that, so children sleeping with children that are above 10 years old, or adults sleeping with adults who are not married, or but are related, children sleeping with adults. What is the ruling on all of this? The ulama from the four madhabs have said it is not allowed because it could lead to a fitna. It is not allowed because it can lead to a fitna. And this is what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ is saying here: وَفَرِّقُوا بَيْنَهُمْ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ. Separate them in their beds to stop any path towards that fitna. But what is the method of us separating the beds? Now you will find this in the books of the Hanafis and the Shafis and other madhabs as well, that they have said that there are two ways that you can separate them. Either, they don't have to have separate bedrooms, either in the same room but two separate beds. So one child sleeps on one bed and another child sleeps on another bed, or one adult on one bed, another adult on another bed, or a child on one bed, adult on another bed. وَفَرِّقُوا بَيْنَهُمْ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ. Separate them in their beds, meaning literal. But again, from the different madhabs and the books of fiqh, they have said another way that you can do this is that you can keep them on the same bed. Obviously, people are not rich at the time of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, and this is probably the case, and it applies to some people today as well. You can keep them on the same bed as long as there is a barrier between them, meaning they've got different blankets, they've got different pillows, and perhaps even if a physical barrier can be placed there, I don't know, a barrier of pillows or something like that, this would also be sufficient. This would also be sufficient, as long as there is no possibility of fitna. And the ulama have mentioned, if there is a fear of fitna, then they should be separated accordingly. in the beds, perhaps in the rooms. So imagine there is a girl and she's related to someone. Can she sleep in the same room as that person? Yes. Can she sleep in the same bed as that person? Yes, if she's under the age of 10. Once she becomes at the age of 10, can she sleep on the same bed of somebody else? Yes, if there is a barrier. No, if there is no barrier. But all of these rulings that we're talking about when it comes to separating and non-separating or having separate blankets, etc., all of that has to be taken into consideration with the level of fitna. So imagine there is a girl, or a boy for that matter, sleeping in the room with another child, but there is a fear of fitna. They might be in separate beds. We will say no. You have to safeguard your children and put them in different rooms. Child with adult. Adult with adult. As long as they've got separate beds and there is no fitna, then that is fine. Or the same bed, but there is a partition or some kind of a barrier or different blankets, etc., then that is fine. However, if you are following those rulings there, but the fitna is still there, then that is not allowed. And hopefully this can now explain all of the different scenarios when it comes to sharing beds and bedrooms with other people that we are not married to. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He helps us to keep us chaste and pure, and for us and for our communities and for our children and for the Muslim Ummah. وصلى اللهم على نبينا محمد والله أعلم.